So today I'm going to talk to you guys about the 10 biggest lessons that I've learned over the past 10 years of working on my own dating life. I feel that I've, made a lot of content, shot a lot of videos about different topics and different ideas, but I've never really went deep into my own story. And I want to share my story today with you guys of how I started this journey of confidence building, of learning how to meet and date the women that I truly desire, but not just share the story for my own sake, right? Just to talk about what I went through, but specifically extract the 10 biggest, most important lessons that you guys could take into your own lives and implement on, and watch your dating lives also transform and have new realizations, new insights, and new experiences due to these lessons. So the reason why I started this journey of not just dating, but like more so personal development in general, reading books, meditation, like going to the gym, just working on myself, was because I didn't like who I was. I never really liked who I was. When I was younger, I did not have a lot of friends. I had very low self-esteem, like crippling low self-esteem. And I'm not blaming anybody for it. Part of it was the environment that I was in. Part of it was maybe my own mindsets at the time, my own ways of interpreting things, because self-esteem isn't just what people say to you or what people do to you, but it's also how you interpret it. Some people get rejected and they come out of it stronger. Some people get rejected and they come out of it demoralized and really hurt by it. So it's all about the combination, right, of what happens to you, but also how do you really process that stuff and what's the meaning that you make out of it. And when I was younger, I didn't make very good meanings of the things that happened to me. Was I bullied? I was bullied. I was bullied a lot. I, was not really accepted socially. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have any dating success whatsoever. Was I popular? Absolutely not. And I always had this need in me, this like craving in me to fit in, but not just fit in, but to be liked, to be accepted, to be cool, right? I think all of us have that innate desire to have some level of status, have some level of recognition, have some power as well. Some of us, move closer to it. Some of us never really get there. But for me, the amount of pain that I felt from not being accepted by the women that I wanted, by the guys that I wanted to be friends with, was so overwhelming that I made a decision coming out of high school that I would do whatever it takes to transform myself. Because as you guys know, when you're in high school, when you're a little bit younger, you have a fixed reputation. People know you a certain way, and it still is possible, obviously, to change and to shift yourself, but a lot of time at that young age of 15, 16, 17, you don't have the tools, number one, to know how to transform yourself. But also, when you're consistently being viewed a certain way and treated a certain way, it's tough to make changes, right? Because things, as I said, are a little bit more fixed. You have that reputation from a very young age. But I knew that coming out of high school, getting to the point that I was 18 years old, that the world, in a sense, was my oyster. And that if I did the work, if I seeked out the right mentorship, if I took a lot of action, that change was possible. And that's what was really driving me. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about my journey to dating mastery and the 10 biggest lessons that I've learned over these past 10 years and how you guys could use them in your lives as well. So the first lesson is, do not hide your flaws. So that is the first lesson that I've learned. And I recommend all you guys to write these down as well, because You'll have some insights around these lessons. I'll be going deep. I'll be sharing some stories around them. So the first lesson is do not hide your flaws. You know, when I was in high school, I always thought that to be cool and specifically to be attractive to women, that I needed to do everything right. I needed to say the right things. I needed to have the right behaviors. I needed to act a certain way that was high value or high status. But the more that I kind of learned that by you hiding your flaws, they're actually being revealed even more. Because anything that you try to hide, anything that you try to resist, always shines through. The truth is always shining through. To give you guys a specific example and story of this, when I was 18 and I graduated high school, I went to camp to work as a sports instructor. And at that camp, nobody knew me. It was in a completely different environment. And I met one of the most beautiful girls at that camp. And in my mind, I knew that because I wasn't the most cool, the most confident person in high school, I could almost reinvent myself completely. I could be whoever I want to be. So when I got to that camp, I decided consciously before arriving there, I remember being on the bus, going up the hill, as I'm about to be welcomed into this new environment, that I'm going to be the cool guy, right? The confident guy. And I just made that decision. So I did everything I could in my power to act like that person. It was the ultimate fake it till you make it type situation. And interestingly enough, I met one of the most pretty girls at that camp. We started to date, we started to like each other, get to know each other, spend nights together. I was a virgin, she was a virgin. And on the third date, or if you want to call it a date, it was like the third time that we were hanging out, she asks me, "Are you a virgin? Like, have you ever had sex?" And I said, "Of course. I've had tons of sex." And I could just feel this resistance in my body. I could feel this tension in my body as I say it, as I'm blatantly lying to her. Obviously, I was lying because I wanted to come off as cool. I wanted to keep up that front of this guy that is good with women, that's, who's confident, who knows what he's doing. And in the moment, I didn't think much of it. I was like, yeah, just gotta fake it till you make it, right? But then later on in that summer, we start to connect deeper. We start to really develop feelings for each other. I started to, in some ways, even fall in love with this girl. And she told me that she wanted me to take her virginity. And when it was time to actually perform for me, when it was time for me to actually have intimacy with her, I couldn't. I was so in my head. I was so stuck. I was paralyzed by fear of not being able to perform. And that's exactly what happened. And the reason why that happened, now that I meditated on this quite a bit, is because I was dishonest with her. I didn't own my truth. I didn't own the fact that, hey, I'm also a virgin. Because she opened up about that, but I didn't have the courage to really tell her the truth and to own my flaws. And that's the first lesson I want you guys to take away from this, is if you think that you have a side to you that's not attractive, that's weird, that is nerdy, that's awkward, whatever it is that you label in your logical mind as bad, start to own that. Because that is what guys that are actually confident do. Not guys that fake confidence, but real confident men are able to own their shit. They're able to own their flaws. They're able to talk about it openly. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is to not put women on a pedestal. That is lesson number two. So fast forward a few years, I'm in college, and I am doing a little bit of approaching more at house parties, but I hear about this thing called Tinder. This is back in like 2014, 2015, when Tinder was starting to get popular. So I'm like, cool, this is an easy way for me to meet women. Let me try this out as well. I download the app. This is when it kind of just first started. And I don't get a lot of matches because my pictures are just complete garbage. But one girl that is exactly my type, I end up matching with. Just beautiful girl, exactly my type. And we start talking. Interestingly enough, she's the one that engages me first. She starts talking to me, she starts kind of flirting with me. We end up getting on a phone call together, talking for quite a while. And in my mind, I start to build this fantasy out of, oh my God, this is the one. This is it. There's nobody in my life that I want except for this girl. And I'm beginning to like obsess over her. I'm noticing myself in class thinking about her, visualizing myself getting married to her, having a family with her, and just going down this long track of thoughts where I completely forget about everything. Like my mind is completely occupied with thoughts about this girl. And I feel so much anxiety before this first date with this girl. I feel an extreme amount of anxiety. I spend a bunch of time on YouTube reading about what are the best things to say. How do I start conversations? Do I hug her when I first see her? Do I not hug her? Do I flirt with her? Do I not flirt with her? So I'm so in my head about how to basically conduct the perfect date that when I show up on that date, I'm like shaking. So one thing leads to another. Even though I'm extremely anxious and extremely nervous, we end up going back to my place, but I am so stuck in my head that I don't know what to do. I end up not even kissing her. And I realize like, wow, like I wish I could kiss this girl because some book told me to kiss the girl. Some book said do this or do that. Anyways, like the date ends and I'm like beating myself up over all the things that I thought that I did right or thought that I did wrong. So I get really needy with her over text. I start sending her paragraphs. I start texting her good morning. I start asking her, how is the weather going in the town that's 20 minutes away from you? Like, what are you wearing today? What did you eat for breakfast? I'm just completely obsessed with this girl. And I invite her out to Valentine's Day, because this is right around Valentine's Day of like, I believe like my sophomore year of college. I remember buying her all these gifts, chocolates, flowers, taking her out to this exquisite dinner. And basically, you know, we do Valentine's Day. She ends up asking me, do I want to kiss her? Because I didn't have the confidence or the courage to do it myself. And then the next day she ghosts me. And the big lesson that I took out of this, I know that this seems probably super basic to you guys. You're probably, a lot of you are at that point that like, yeah, of course, like don't put the girl on a pedestal. But you guys might be doing it in a more subtle way, where you meet a girl that you think is of a higher caliber than what you're used to, and you start to really give her way more value than you should. You start to attach all these meanings to her of like, oh, this girl's special. Oh, this girl needs to be treated like this. Oh, I can't say this around this girl. Oh, I gotta say this around this girl, right? So you stop being authentic because you believe that a certain girl is more valuable than another girl. And I'm not saying that certain women aren't more physically attractive or that you can't have a deeper connection with someone. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm also not saying that in any way you guys should be settling. What I'm saying is that treat women like human beings. They all have insecurities. They all have fears. They all have the same mind and body and soul that we have. And they're not goddesses. They're just humans, right? So it's really important to see women for who they are and to connect with them as human beings, regardless of how attractive they are. Even if they're models, right? The models that you guys are going to see today, connect with them as humans, not as gorgeous women. So lesson number 3, and this is where we're going to start to go deep, is lesson number 3 is be energetically congruent. This is a really, really painful lesson that I've also learned, probably towards the end of college. When I started to really go out a lot and approach a lot, I had this constant feeling of anxiety and insecurity and fear especially around women that reminded me of the kind of girls that rejected me when I was younger. Because my subconscious had all these memories stored of being not accepted, of being ostracized. So when I would see really pretty girls, I would start to feel all this like intense emotion in my body. And my natural reaction was to hide that emotion, to suppress that emotion, to try to, force myself to act confident, to give off a front externally that was strong, that was powerful, that was charismatic, because that's what a lot of the material that I read online said to do. But deep down, I didn't feel that way. And regardless of how fucking hard I tried to give off a confident front, it never led anywhere. Women could see right through it. They could see in my facial expressions how tense I was. They could see in my eyes how much fear I had. They could see how uncomfortable I was. They could see all of it. So the third lesson that I really learned is to be energetically congruent. To be energetically congruent. And what do I mean by being energetically congruent? I mean, start before you take any action with just coming to terms with where you're at, right? Meet your inner child where your inner child is at. Meet your inner child where your inner child's at. So if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling overwhelmed even or paralyzed, always come back to where you're at right now. If you're at a bar, if you're on a date, if you're in the middle of something, some activity, and this even applies outside of dating, like always check in with yourself, come back to where you're at and be energetically congruent. Don't try to be anything else energetically than where you're at right now, because women can feel that. So lesson number 4, and wrapping this one up, is once I started to be energetically congruent, even if my mind logically was telling me, you look so sad, you look like such a loser, I would start to dismiss those thoughts and just come into what I'm actually feeling in the moment and really drop into my body. This is what really drops you guys out of your head into your body, is being energetically congruent, allowing yourself to feel what you feel. It makes such a difference. It makes such a shift in how people perceive you, even if your mind is trying to mess with you. Lesson number 4 is actively seek out tension. So most of us are actively avoiding tension. We're trying to do things that are as easy as we possibly can do them. We're always looking for shortcuts, even dating, right? It's like, who's the easiest girl to approach here? Which girl looks like she's not intimidating? Which girl looks like she would be the most receptive to me talking to her? But as you guys are going through this journey, you want to actively look for tension. And this is going to sound very counterintuitive, but the more that you can start to get comfortable with tension and discomfort and look for it, the more courage that you're able to access. We all have this part of us that deep down is this powerful leader. And that part can only be tapped into. It's almost like your neurochemistry changes. Like you start to have more testosterone in your system when you start to seek out challenge. Like men have always been looking for challenge, right? Facing obstacles, facing difficulties. And I feel like in our society we've gotten so used to and so conditioned to just the easy path, the soft path, the gentle path. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with relaxing, enjoying yourself, but if you don't constantly take periods of time every day to step into that tension and that discomfort, you're going to be emotionally weak. You're not going to be able to handle some of these difficulties that you need to go through in dating. So instead of avoiding them, look for them, seek them out, right? I'll share an experience with you guys. Is I was towards the end of college at this point, and I decided that I didn't just want to approach in nightclubs where everybody approaches, where it's socially acceptable to approach. For me to get really, really comfortable under tension, because I knew that I still wasn't fully comfortable with tension and with discomfort, I needed to actively seek out situations that scared me. So approaching women at the cafeteria in big groups, exposing myself to social pressure, talking to women on a bus where everybody could see me. And this is some of the stuff that we'll be doing here at the mastermind, is exposing you guys to social pressure. But if you can do it actively, not reactively, if you could choose to step into it and start to even enjoy it, you're going to become so much more courageous and confident. And then the little situations of when you see a girl by herself are going to become easy, right? Now, I all the time see women with their dad or with their mom that I find pretty or attractive that I want to talk to, and I go for it because it's fun, it's more exciting, there's more tension and pressure in that kind of situation. And I'm not rude about it. I'm very, very nice to whoever else is in the situation, but I'm actively seeking out that pressure, that possibility of rejection. I'm looking for the possibility of rejection in every situation because it makes me stronger. So that's lesson number 4. Lesson number 5 is that it's all about the place that you're coming from. And this is probably the most important lesson. If it comes down to one thing in terms of success with women, it's all about the place that you're coming from. Are you trying to prove yourself? Are you trying to seek validation? Are you trying to get something from the girl? Are you trying to avoid her rejection? Or are you having the intention of just being vulnerable and sharing? So an experience that changed this whole reality that I had in my entire belief system around what women really wanted was right before I started Everlasting Confidence in 2018. I was living in Connecticut, and at the time I liked to go to different music festivals and stuff like that. And I went to this one music festival called Electric Zoo. It was a EDM festival that I've really liked. And in the past, what I would do is I would try to just act cool. I would try to impress girls at these kind of events and festivals. But I really set the intention before coming there that I'm just going to be as vulnerable as I could be. Whatever I feel, I'm going to share. I'm not going to hide anything. I'm just going to set my intention to go for what I want and to express what I want and be open. So I see this girl, just so beautiful, dancing with her friend, and I just listened to the energy in my body. I didn't overthink. I just let my body carry me towards her. I walked up to her, and the first thing that came out of my mouth, it wasn't even like I was planning to say this, it just came out of me. I said, "I am so attracted to you." That's it. I didn't tell her my name. I didn't say anything else. I didn't ask for her name. I just told her, "I'm so attracted to you." Then I told her, "I want to dance with you." Then I told her, "I want to kiss you." Then I told her, "I want to hold you." And the things that my body would tell me to say, I just said. And to you guys, it might be like, well, how did you, because I started making out with her within like 35 seconds. And you guys might be thinking, how is that like possible, right? Don't you got to get to know her first, connect with her first? But when you are coming from the right place, when you're coming from the place of just letting your body feed you the words that you want to share and take the actions that you want to take, things can happen so fast because it's spontaneous. So that's lesson number 5, is it's all about the place that you guys are coming from. Lesson number 6 is something that I learned from a mentor of mine. So I found a mentor. It was more like the mentor found me. That's a lot of how this works, is that you don't actively seek out mentors, but mentors find you guys when you guys are ready to have a mentor. Yeah, I had this guy hit me up on Facebook. We started talking, getting to know each other. He started coaching me eventually. And this guy was really, really advanced, like levels and levels ahead of where I was. This guy was really into, exploring his sexuality in terms of BDSM. He had multiple women that he was dating at the same time that were living with him, that were like his quote unquote submissives. And, according to him, like they were benefiting from it more than he was. And that was his whole idea. Like one of the ideas that this mentor opened me up to is that like by you guys meeting women and connecting with them sexually, not being a nice guy, being really assertive, being really direct and honest about your desires for them, and giving them a really good sexual experience, they are actually getting way more value out of it than you are. That you're giving them such a gift by being sexual with them, and by being direct and assertive with them, and by being dominant. So the idea that this mentor taught me, which is the 6th lesson here, is that you guys get to choose the role that you play in women's lives. You choose the role that you play in women's lives. You can be the guy that walks up to her and that she says, sorry, I have a boyfriend, and turns back to her friends. You could be that guy. You can be the guy that makes her feel extremely uncomfortable. You could be the guy that she's really nice to and she has this fake, sweet kind of conversation with, and then goes and makes out with another guy and goes home with another guy. You could be that guy. You could be the guy that becomes her best buddy. Or you can be the guy that becomes her boyfriend and has a really deep, amazing relationship with her. Or you can maybe be the guy that gives her an amazing sexual experience and that she remembers him for the rest of her life. So you choose what role you want to play in women's lives. And a lot of this also is tied to intention, right? Like when you set the intention of how you want to show up in the interaction, it also is really powerful because it's communicating to her like who you are. And you could choose who you want to be. You could choose who you want to be, the role you want to play. And once you choose who you want to be, it affects everything. It affects the way that you text. It affects the way that you talk to her, the way that you look at her, the dates that you invite her on, how quickly you get sexual with her. And this is up to you guys. There's no right or wrong answer. You guys could be just friends with girls. You could date women seriously. You could have flings with women. You could have dynamics where you're dating multiple women at the same time and having even threesomes with them. But it's all about what do you want to be? What role do you want to play in her life? It's really empowering to know that you can choose who you want to be. So that's lesson number 6. Lesson number 7 is that real abundance is internal, not external. One thing that I thought for a long time was that if I had enough girls that I was talking to, my neediness would go away. Because I always had this sense of neediness, the sense of lack from my past, the sense of insecurity. And I needed new women to fill that for a long time. And at first, I wasn't that good at meeting women. I wasn't that good at dating them, but eventually I got pretty good. And the story I'll tell you guys chronologically also is around the time when I already was building everlasting confidence. I was already coaching different guys. I think this was 4 years ago. I was at a point in my life where I, from the outside, hit my peak. I had, I believe, 4 girls that I was dating at the same time. And they're all very pretty. I was sleeping and dating 4 different girls at the same time. I had 1 in New York. I had 2 in New York and then 2 in New Jersey. And I had this quote unquote rotation where different nights of the week I would see different girls. I would take them out on dates. I felt like a king, at least on the outside. But the interesting thing is underneath the abundance and the success that I had, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys would be like, oh, I would want that too, right? I'd want to date 3 to 4 really pretty girls at the same time. I felt this constant fear of what if I lose one of them? What if I lose 2 of them? What if I lose 3 of them? What if I got to restart? What if one of them starts dating somebody else? So it was almost coming like from this space of like lack, and I was almost like in a rat race trying to keep these girls in my life. And I didn't feel good about myself. I felt empty. I wasn't doing that much inner work either at that time. So then COVID hit. Guess what happened? I lost all 4 girls. One moved to Florida because she had a house there. One just was really scared of COVID and didn't want to meet up. Another one just ghosted me. Right? So COVID hit, I lost everything. And what I was left with was the sense of lack and emptiness and neediness inside of me. So I knew that real abundance can only be internal, right? Because once you guys are abundant inside and you don't need any women, sure, you could enjoy them, you could date them, you could sleep with them, but you don't need women. Like, you feel good about yourself. You love yourself. You have value whether or not you're sleeping with women. Because in the past, I was so fucking attached to women and to dating women. Like, I constantly needed to be approaching, right? At first, it was like I was terrified of approaching. Then at this point in my life, I'm like super attached to approaching. If I'm not approaching every day, then I'm a loser. I'm a piece of shit. I'm gonna lose my skills, right? So it wasn't coming from a healthy place. I constantly needed validation. And then COVID hit, and I went through some of the toughest times of my life. I went through a lot of pain. A lot of traumas came up that I've never processed. And it was a period of darkness, but also healing for me. And then I got into a relationship. So the 7th lesson, or rather the 8th lesson at this point, I can't remember 7th or 8th lesson, I think 8th lesson at this point, is that you cannot betray yourself for women. So one of the girls that I lost out of my rotation ended up actually becoming my girlfriend. This was back during COVID, still living in New Jersey. And this girl had a cat. Now, I'm allergic to cats. I can't do cats. It's just something that has always been a thing for me when I was young. Like, I can't be around cats. Severely allergic to them. So I neglected my own base, like, health, safety needs for validation. That's how needy I was that I continued to hang out with her even though I knew that I was hurting myself. I was damaging myself. She was attractive, she liked me, we were having fun together. She wasn't very emotionally stable either. The way that she acted, she disrespected me constantly. She, in ways, I wouldn't set great boundaries. Like, we would set up a date and a time to meet up, and then I would show up, and then she was sleeping, and then she wouldn't answer me until like 3 hours later, and I put up with it. And even though on the outside I had a girlfriend, quote unquote, or I had somebody who I was dating who was attractive, I didn't respect myself because I betrayed myself for women. And you guys might not be in a relationship, except for Mike, but remember, this lesson goes whether you're in a relationship, whether you're not in a relationship, do not betray yourself for women. No matter what you do not betray yourself for women. Even in the most subtle ways, right? Like, you're having a conversation with her and she's like, yeah, can you buy me a drink? And you don't want to buy her a drink. Don't fucking buy her a drink because you think you need to, right? She's like, oh, let's go here. Let's go to this event. And you're like, she's like, oh, all my friends are there, and you don't want to go. So don't go. Right? There's these little things that happen, these micro betrayals that happen on your end that stack up, that crush your self-respect and your self-esteem, and that the woman feels. And that the other side of the coin is that the more of these little betrayals that she sees from you, because maybe logically she's not thinking about it, but her subconscious is absorbing all of it, right? Women see everything. They understand everything. She feels like she can't trust you or respect you. And she starts to disrespect you more. And eventually she betrays you because you betrayed yourself first. So that's lesson number 7, is do not betray yourself for women. Lesson number 9 is, I'm not going to share the story on this one, but I'll give you guys the lesson. Do not settle, ever. Do not ever settle, and know exactly what you want in a woman. So there's a couple parts to this lesson, right? So the first part is to know exactly what you want, physically, emotionally, spiritually in a woman. And if you meet someone who is like 50% of that, do not settle for them, because they're not going to become that 100% for you. And that was a mistake I made, right? A woman will not change because you want her to change, right? If you don't like her when you first meet her 100%, like if you're attracted to her but she doesn't 100% check all your boxes, she's not going to change for you. She's not going to become that for you. And she might be a beautiful, amazing girl. She might be amazing for someone else, but she's just not for you. So when I say settle, I don't mean that there is anything necessarily wrong with a certain woman. She might be telling you like the best girlfriend for somebody else. But everybody, all of you guys have your own idea of exactly what you want, right? Like if you really are honest with yourself, when you close your eyes, you imagine your dream girl, you know exactly what you want. So don't settle for anything less, because somebody who is 30, 50, 70% of that isn't going to go and on their own become that 100% if they're not that right away. Maybe they will. If they do it, they would do it for themselves, right? They wouldn't do it for you. So kind of the couple pieces here is, number 1 is know exactly what you want. Don't ever settle for anything less, and don't try to change women. Don't go into relationships with women thinking that they're going to become better or that they're going to change. Just, you want to always accept people for who they are, because what you see is what you get, right? And some of the physical characteristics or some of the emotional traits or personality traits that you see right away, that is what it is, right? And if you can't love and accept the person unconditionally, the way that they are when you first meet them, they're most likely not going to change. So that was the other big lesson. And this is more of a relationship lesson that I learned. And the final lesson, this story is really interesting, is to not grab. To not grab. That is the final lesson. So over the past couple months, I've been single. And when I was in Mexico, this was in January, I took a lot of action, right? Coming out of a relationship, I told myself that I'm going to go out, I'm going to take a lot of action, I'm going to meet a lot of women, and I'm going to really, honestly, I was like, I don't know if I still have it, if I don't have it. But I started taking a lot of action, and I got rejected over and over and over and over again when I was in Mexico, again and again and again and again. And I got to a point where I was like, maybe I'm not that good at this stuff anymore. Should I maybe even be coaching it? Like, is there something that I'm doing wrong? Like, I really start to judge myself and doubt my abilities, right, in meeting women. And this is literally like 3 months back or 2 months back. And then very randomly, I have a homeless guy approach me. And this homeless guy like is wearing dirty clothes, like these dirty, scrappy, baggy clothes. He doesn't smell that good. And the first thing he says, he's like, hey, I feel like a little bit of like nervousness in my stomach coming up to you, but would it be okay if I stayed at your place? I'm like, wow, this is like a really self-aware homeless guy. Like, this homeless guy is like really like understands his emotions very well. Because most homeless guys are like, give me money, like kind of like that. And this guy's like, no, in English, yeah. Because this is in like a tourist area. So homeless guy approaches me, but it's like his energy also is powerful. Like this guy had like this strong, grounded, loving, masculine energy. And I just paused. I was like, at first, my body was like, maybe, like, I'll let you stay with me. But then I was like, yeah, like, I was staying in a studio, so I told him, like, yeah, I can't let you stay with me. But something inside of me was like, I got to help this guy out. So I go into my wallet. I have $25 there. It's all I had in terms of cash. And I give him the money. I'm like, there you go. Buy yourself a meal, rent a hostel, do whatever you got to do with it. And typically, I actually don't give money to homeless people because it's almost like they give off this really needy vibe, and it like pushes me away. But this guy, I was just like called to just give him money. So I gave him money. And then something else was like, talk to this guy, like find out like what's his deal. And we talked for a minute, and then all of a sudden he goes, hey man, like, are you into meeting girls? And I was like, yeah. Like, how'd you know? And then he goes, like, I could tell, man. And you know, I could also like, and this is all the homeless guys saying this. He's like, I could tell exactly why you've been getting rejected. And I didn't even really tell him I was getting rejected. He's like, I know why you've been struggling. I could see why you've been struggling. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what is this guy about to tell me? Like, how does he know any of this? And then he goes, you know, like, you're like, you have everything. Like, you're a confident guy. You have good social skills. You know how to talk to women. But there's one thing that you're doing that you're not realizing. And I'm like so curious at this point. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I feel like I'm in a model work session with this guy. And then this guy goes, you are energetically grabbing. He goes, you are energetically grabbing at women. And I'm like, what do you even mean by that? And he's like, well, what I mean is that when you're talking to women and there are silences in the conversation with women, there's the pauses in the conversation with women, you're grabbing at them. Your energy is trying to take something from them. You're trying to fill in those gaps and those silences. And I was like, holy shit, I am. I am doing this. And this is a very advanced insight. I don't think I would have been ready for this insight, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, but it made sense to me because that's exactly what I was doing. And when you guys think about your own interactions with women, your own approaches and conversations, don't just look at what are you saying or how is your body language or how is your eye contact or how are you moving, but what is your energy doing in that moment of that conversation? If you could personify your energy, right? Are you doing this with your energy when you're walking up to women? Like, are you doing this? Are you doing this with your energy when you're walking up to women? Are you doing this with your energy when you're walking up to women, right? These are very like subtle concepts. But does everybody kind of see what I'm saying here? Is that your energy is doing something. And my energy was grabbing. So I realized I had such a big breakthrough that with women that I thought were a little bit out of my league, a little bit out of my wheelhouse, the ones that I really, really wanted, because I felt a little bit of unworthiness still around them, deep down, and I felt like I needed to try to win them over. That was the story, the unconscious story that was running me, was that I needed to try. I needed to put an effort to win them over. And what's interesting is that those kind of women, like model quality women, could smell trying energy from miles away. You can try and do well with women that are, decently attractive, but with women that are the highest caliber of women that are used to getting attention from men their entire lives, they could smell the subtlest amount of trying and needing and wanting and craving. All women can, but especially that highest caliber of women. So that's what I was doing, was that I was filling in those gaps and those silences with saying a little bit extra, making a little comment to get them to laugh a little bit more, or trying to create a little bit more sexual tension because on purpose I thought that that's what I needed to do, versus just being. And right after that experience, Well, actually, during the experience, the homeless guy was like, this is going to change your life. And I was like, yeah, that's the best $25 I ever spent. So the next day, or in 2 days after that, it was my birthday. And I approached 2 girls that day on the street on my birthday. And it was like a minute-long conversation. These were girls that probably some of the most attractive girls I've approached during that duration in Mexico on my trip there. And one of them I could tell was attracted to me, but I remembered in my mind this thing that the homeless guy said of like, don't try. Don't grab. Don't snatch at them. Just be there. That's what I did. I just casually exchanged numbers with them. And then on my birthday, I was having dinner with some friends, and one of my friends was like, hey, you want to invite somebody? You want to invite a girl that you've met? I was like, yeah, there's one girl that I approached today that I actually find attractive that I think also was receptive to me. Everybody else was not. So I texted her. 5 minutes later, she shows up. And the entire night, I had this desire to try to impress her, to validate myself, to prove that I'm like cool to her in little subtle ways, right? Nothing crazy, but I had this need to grab, and I just observed it, and I just existed. And she ended up taking me home. Like, it was like I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing, and she was the one that was like, okay, you ready to go back to your place? I was like, yeah. Within like an hour or two. So since then, the shift here was that whenever I'm approaching women or talking to women, and I have this like desire in me to get something from them or to grab, I just notice it and I don't grab, right? And I want you guys to notice that in yourself as well. Is be comfortable with the silences, be comfortable with the pauses, because that's when all of the connection and attraction happens. It's not in what you say, it's in what you don't say. The less you say, the more impact you have. So those were the 10 biggest lessons I've learned over the last 10 years. Thank you guys.